And we're back. Okay, so topic. Last video, okay, trying to get ahead of things here. There's a huge heat wave coming to the United States. Most of the U.S., like at least half, maybe two-thirds of the continental United States will be under a massive, really dangerous heat wave called variously a death dome or a ring of fire. Not a good look, people. So anyway, it's coming. Today's Tuesday. I think they're expecting it like Wednesday-ish. Not here where I am. I looked at the extended forecast here. Which, can I bring that up? That would be interesting if true. I'm not going to bother. Anyway, increasing heat here. So the heat dome, death dome, ring of fire, after it terrorizes the eastern half of the lower 48 states, it then kind of migrates west and does the same thing for the western half of the country. So we're all gonna catch it. And like I said, I looked at the long-term forecast and it looks pretty nasty, very nasty for where I live. Anyway, here we go, right? Here we go. So that's the context. Last video, I talked about what you might do as a person. Every human being has some responsibility for saving themselves from these events, and talked about that. You know, I had to cut it short because I had other things to do, so I didn't want to go on a long tangent. But it kind of came down to, one, there's not much you can do. If you're going to do anything, do it ahead of time. Don't wait till the last minute, and look after each other. If you got neighbors, elderly neighbors next door, or you have an elder of your own, maybe the next town over or something, or couple of blocks away, yeah, you may want to look after those people because they're probably not going to be able to look after themselves. That's just sort of the nature of these events, is people become overwhelmed, and the very old and the very young become overwhelmed. They can't communicate very well at the best of times, and then they are in stress and they can't tell you they're in stress, and then they're dead or in the emergency room, which is also not a good thing. So that was what you can do as an individual for yourself and for the people you care about. And one of the recommendations at the very end, which I didn't elaborate on too much because it's sort of a kind of a waste of time, but it is a thing, is to run away. You just, if you have family in a place that's not going to be involved, then you go live with those people for a little while. That's a possibility. You know, even if you don't have family, if you know there's a place that's not going to be involved in the calamity that's coming your way, you could just drive or fly or whatever yourself to that city, that part of the country, that part of the world, right? All it takes is money, as usual, and set yourself up in a hotel room. You could do that. What's it going to be, a week? You could do that. And you might want to do that. And that approach of running away or doing something now ahead of need is kind of what I'm going to talk about today, but on a societal level. Society is the sum of all human behavior, right? It's the government, it's the first responders, it's teachers, other community leaders, it's heads of households trying to be responsible for their own household, plus maybe their local community. It's people going to meetings, trying to talk about solutions. Society. Okay, what can society do? What can the community do? And the community, of course, exists at different levels. You have your immediate community, your neighbors on either side, or if you're living in an apartment complex above and below you as well, your block, your entire block of people. And, you know, you may want to scope that out a little bit into several blocks or a voting district or a zip code or something like that. There are different ways we organize ourselves. And in terms of how we organize ourselves, does society have any obligation or any opportunity to save people from global heating? And the short answer, I guess, is yeah, sure, there's an opportunity. I mean, in theory. But is there an opportunity in fact? And this is where we have some hard decisions to make, really hard, and we're likely going to fail. That doesn't mean we don't have decisions. Even failing is a decision to fail. So we have to decide, are we going to try and succeed, or are we just going to go ahead and fail? And that's a decision point. And then if you try to do something, that isn't failure, well, do you succeed at that or do you fail? So there's levels of decision and trying and effort and going around and around. And does society have any obligation to do these things? I don't know. I'll be honest, I don't know. Here in America, we tend to go it alone. The nuclear family is the most important level of abstraction. Every man is home is his castle, the whole thing, right? Sovereignty, all that. So as regards global heating, this is going to affect everybody. So your sovereignty in your castle and decisions you make, it kind of doesn't matter much, because everyone around you is going to be affected by this. And decisions you make to try and save yourself may or may not work. If no one else is making the same decision, again, this is a societal problem, then you deciding to save yourself may not save you, because no one else is saving themselves. You may be surrounded by people that in the end are desperate, angry, confused, betrayed, and so that's where you are. Maybe you're not suffering from those things, but they are. So if we are going to really turn the corner on this, and if we, as individuals, if we really intend to survive this, then we're going to have to find some way to do it on a societal level. And I'm not being a hippie and a leftist and a communist, and I'm not talking about communes, and I'm just saying that's how it is. This is physics. And, you could run away by yourself. Yes, you could definitely do that. If you have that kind of money and you don't really have anybody else to worry about, you could just run away. You could go to some other city or some other country. That's a big move. Most people aren't going to make that move. Most people are going to stay in place. This is why we probably don't have to worry too much about refugee crises among the poor. You'll have refugees. I just mentioned you can run away. You can just abandon your neighborhood, your city, your county, your zip code. You can just abandon it and run away. But that takes money. So there's going to be fewer people than we think doing that. And the ones that do are going to have money. So people with money, they just tend to blend in, right? They don't bring problems that they can't solve because they have money. They don't bring unemployment. They have their own money. They don't bring, mental illness. They have money. They feel fine about their life, and so on. They don't bring starvation. They don't even bring disease. They've got money. Whatever ails them, they just cure that, either back home or when they come to a new situation. There's nothing they can't solve with money. So the refugees who actually do flee their society that has failed them will be fine. They'll be fine. They'll be the respective millionaires and billionaires of their country, their zip code, their community. When they come to your community, they'll just blend in, and you'll never see them. And you might notice there's some people who look unlike you, and that obviously speak a foreign language, and so they won't blend in perfectly, but they will, because they have money. People with money are they just smooth everything over. So I'm making a big deal out of this because if your society is going to fail you and you have money, then you may be in a position to save yourself by going someplace else. So let's just get that out of the way right away. Yes, people with money don't have to worry about this. But what about people that don't have a lot of money or don't want to spend their money that way or like where they live and they would rather have this work? Then you're going to have to think about how you can survive this by staying in place. And when I mean this, I don't mean the coming heat wave that's going to last a week, although you might start thinking about that. These heat waves are going to keep coming. But there's nothing about this that's unique to this particular time. It's not like the Carrington event where there's a massive sunspot and gamma rays and stuff like that. This isn't a one-off from the universe. This isn't a meteorite. This is our current Earth dynamic system. Earth dynamic system is changing. It's physics, and the physics doesn't go backwards. It only goes forward, and the physics only gets worse, and the physics continues, and it spreads. Places that are having heat once in a while now will have heat waves all the time, and places that aren't having heat waves now will start to have them. It just spreads. So we have to start thinking about modes of behavior that don't involve just running away and getting a hotel room some 5 states over. Although now you may want to do that. If you live in the target zone for this current death dome and you're not sure about your ability to keep yourself cool, or in your situation, you may want to run away and come back in a week or a few days. But does society have any responsibility to change the way it is currently constructed and organized? And that's the topic today. So when I say societal organization, I have to define what I mean here. This is going to be outside the box. I am going to now say some things that nobody ever thinks about. Maybe there's some urban planners that think about these topics, but climate scientists, meteorologists, scientists in general, leadership, they never have these thoughts. And here's the thoughts. Our current society, wherever you are, where you are, wherever you are, your zip code, your state, your community, it doesn't matter where. All of them, the world over, all of them. Anything that has been around for more than 20 years, which is everything. Everything that has existed on this planet for more than 20 years has existed in a Earth dynamic system that is now disappearing. It is disappearing globally, and is disappearing forever. It will never go back. So everywhere you are now, how your house was built, how your water is delivered, how your electricity is delivered, how your food is delivered, where your food is, how it's grown, who grows it, under what circumstances, when is it harvested, when is it shipped, how is it preserved, every single thing about how you live is becoming misaligned with where the Earth is headed. The Earth used to be like this. Here was the range of behaviors. We built houses within this range of behaviors. If you lived in a place that got really cold in the winters, then probably housing codes, building practices, homeowner expectations, maybe it had more insulation in the walls because it was really cold there. But if you lived in a more temperate place like where I live here, where it never really gets cold in the winter, never really gets hot in the summer, the amount of insulation in your walls, the presence of air conditioning built in, it's just really not there. A lot of old homes, from even further back in time, 50 years, 100 years. So the situation where you are was built to accommodate a set of Earth dynamic pressures that existed at that time and for hundreds of years before. There was no reason to expect that things would change. If you, here in California, because we worry about everybody, nanny state, all this kind of stuff, we have been more concerned in our building codes about energy conservation. That's kind of a California thing. Is anyone else concerned about energy conservation outside of California? I don't know. I don't live in those other states. I haven't visited them. I don't know what their culture is. But here in California, we have for many years now, really since the 80s, have been very interested and concerned about energy conservation. California was also progressive and on the leading edge of pollution standards. It was California requiring better, emission standards for automobiles that made the automobile industry change. And, later on, eventually Europe picked up on that and demanded the same sorts of levels. So now the auto industry manufactures cars that get decent fuel economy and pollute as little as possible. Largely without sacrificing performance or comfort or any of the other things that we always wanted in our automobiles. So California kind of leads the way on this stuff. And we did also lead the way on energy conservation, and that meant more insulation in new homes, zoning and building requirements for new home construction and that kind of thing. So we're kind of not in too bad a shape for the heat, because the same technology like insulation that keeps your home at a static temperature during a fairly moderate temperature ranges, which is what we have here in California. We have a pretty moderate temperature. We have a moderate climate. Unless you happen to live in the actual deserts. That will also work, that will continue to work as the planet gets hotter. So as the globe heats up on average, and of course here in California as well, we might be in a decent position because of 40 years of building practices. But in other parts of the country, did your community care enough about things like energy conservation to encourage a certain level of attention to home construction? Maybe, maybe not. I keep getting news out of England that they are really way behind. And of course, their problem is really exacerbated. People are living in homes now that weren't built in the 80s or even in the 50s. People are living in homes now that were built in the year 1050. So maybe completely built out of stone, completely built out of wood, no insulation of any kind, half timbers, plaster walls, all this kind of stuff. And the English the British are very quickly realizing that they are not in a good place for what's coming. And they're being quite frank about that. And some people will then deny, it's just not coming. But at least the British are admitting that they're not in a good place, because they have homes that are 400, 800, 1,000 years old. And even more recently, they just didn't have the focus. I don't understand why, but they don't believe in insulation. It's almost like a cultural thing. Don't insulate your home. And I've heard explanations as to why that is. Don't insulate your home, but it just sounds weird to me. It really does. It's like they don't want a stable interior environment, or whatever. I don't know, but there was always a societal norm about not insulating new home construction. So they know they're in a bad place, but we're all in a bad place. The norms for our habitat were based upon a certain expectation for the climate. It would rain here, and the sun would come out this time of year, and then it would be this hot and this cold. And after hundreds of years here in the U.S. and thousands of years in Europe, understanding what the range was going to be, they built their entire communities around those expectations. Well, those expectations are now, as we say, in the sciences, on an excursion. They're moving. The Earth dynamic system is on an excursion. So your climate where you are, for which your homes are built and your roads are built and your distances are metered in a certain way and your cars are manufactured for certain expectations of whatever you've been living under all these years, all of that is now going out the window. This is very difficult for people to understand. It is impossible for people to comprehend. I just told you. I just told anyone who's going to watch this video, except maybe 4 years from now, oh yeah, they'll get it. But right now, anybody watching this video won't really understand what I'm saying. That where you are and the way your infrastructure, all of it, the electrical, the water, the insulation in your home, the way your home was built, the way the homes on either side of you were built, everything about this, where your food is delivered, how you get your food, the roads, the length of time you have to drive to do anything, all these things that pattern your life were defined and prescribed and permitted and laid out during a period of time in the Earth dynamic system that is now in the past. No longer applies. The challenge, which we will not accept, is that we must now completely rework society to accommodate a new Earth dynamic system. If you decided one day that you were going to live in Death Valley, in Southern California, you're going to go live in Death Valley, then you would be accepting that you're going into a different system. It's going to be hot. It's going to rain torrents. And then it's not going to rain for months. And you're going to be isolated. There's not going to be any food, shops, stores, neighbors, nothing, okay? You're going to be out there by yourself in the desert. And you would have to accept all that because that's what you're going into. But no one is prepared for something else to happen where you don't actually move anywhere. You don't decide anything. You're perfectly happy. But the heat comes for you. That's different. If I had decided to go live in Death Valley, I would have a long list of things that are going to change about my life. And I'm going to build a home. Well, I'm going to have to do this, this, and this, and this. And I want to need air conditioning. It's going to have to be big air conditioning. And there's no power out there. No one lives out there. There's no power. There's no water. There's no sewer. There's no nothing. Long checklist of things I'm going to have to manage for myself. But if you're sitting in your comfortable home, in your comfortable place where you've lived generationally, and all of a sudden the system around you changes, you didn't sign up for that. You didn't sign up for that. And is your society, which is where that change has to happen, is your society ready to help you cope? And the answer is no. Not ready. Could we have that conversation? Maybe. I think having the conversation as a society of what's coming and what we have to do to cope, having that conversation on a larger scale is going to require political change, a change in the political class. Can we change the class? Can we change politics? Can we change politicians? No. That is the challenge. Can you? No, you can't. But let's prepare that you. Let's pretend that you did, or that you're working now on a scale that's small enough that your politicians are really your neighbors. Okay, district supervisor or homeowners association representative or something. So it's a person you know you have daily access to, or nearly so, and on that local level, you get together with 200 or 300 people and your elders or representatives, and now you have a different discussion. You're not changing politics, getting the money out of politics, getting the fossil fuel industry out of politics. Instead, you're basically working with your neighbors. Can you and your neighbors, even if neighbors is 300 people, because you might actually be familiar with a neighborhood of 300 people. You may know that there's an elder that lives in this house, and this other house, these people moved in, they have 2 children. You may know enough about a neighborhood of 300 people to feel comfortable making plans with them. Could you do that? Maybe. Is that adequate? No. Not really. You're still embedded in a system of politics and bureaucracy that is going to look very closely at anything you plan to do. You're not going to be able to do these things. We're not going to let you. Wait, that's not up to code. That requires a permit. That requires an engineering sign off. You can't do that. This is public land. You can't do that to your own land. You want to have a garden in your backyard? Oh, you can't do that. You want to have a garden in your front yard? Absolutely not. And they'll just come in and they'll say, you can't do this, you can't do that. And don't be too surprised if the Whole Foods down the street finds out that the neighborhood wants to have a community garden, and then they go to the city and say, no, they can't have a community garden. And you might say, well, why would they say that? Because they have produce to sell. Oh, that's just paranoid. They're not going to do that. The hell they won't. The hell they won't. You gotta end these movements early on. If a corporation gets the sense that the employees are about to organize and unionize, what do? They cut that out right first thing, because that's a threat to their way of doing business. And will your Whole Foods, will your Trader Joe's allow you to have a large-scale community garden for your whole block of 300 people who used to go to the Whole Foods to buy the organic produce? Will they? They might. Well, what if they don't? What can you do? What can you do about it? So the challenge is for societal change, which is large groups of people now, maybe even entire cities, 5,000, 10,000 people. The requirement for societal change at this point is there. It's real. It's the only real way to survive this. I mean, leaving for another city and coming back in a week, that's not going to cut it after a while. You do that too many times, people are going to notice, oh, every time there's a heat wave, that guy leaves his house. You're going to come back the third time, and your house is going to be stripped inside. Oh, and it's going to have squatters. So, yeah, you as an individual can do some things like run away and come back and run away and come back. And then you come back to nothing. House has been burned down by people squatting in it and having campfires in the middle of the floor. You think I'm joking? I'm not. You could do that as an individual, but if we do it as a society, we don't have those exact same set of problems. Can we make these changes to protect the citizenry and reorganize our societies on a societal level? No. We can't. Not now. Eventually, yes. And that was the point of my story that I've written, which is that people will go on with their lives as long as they possibly can, even beyond the point where they no longer can. They will pretend that their lives are normal. They will pretend that this will pass until finally they can't. And at that point, they often just die. At some point, they've been in denial long enough, and now it's too late to do anything. They jump in their car, they rush for the freeway, they're heading somewhere out of town on the freeway, but everyone else who also has the same orientation, right, wait till the last minute, then they're also all on the freeway, and pretty soon there's cars boiling over and running out of gas and people dying in their car, right? There's a dead person behind the wheel, and then there's bullets being fired into the air, and the car is on fire, and then this one just runs into the ditch, and then you're stuck in the middle of that, and you can't go anywhere. And that's basically, during a heat wave, that's a death sentence. You're dead. You're done. So that doesn't work. We've seen this over and over again. Pacific Palisades, the Paradise Fire, called the Camp Fire. People trying to run at the last minute and run right into the flames. Sometimes to perish. Other times to abandon their vehicle. They already abandoned their home. Now they abandoned their vehicle. Now they're walking. They didn't think they'd going to be walking. They thought they'd be on the freeway going to a 5-star hotel someplace. Now they're walking. They're surrounded by flames, surrounded by fire. And they're walking. No one signed up for that. We're not allowed to make these changes ahead of time. We're not allowed to. You won't be allowed to. But that's what you have to do. Societally, we must make these changes. And so, what are the changes I'm talking about? Writ small, I mean, the minimum way to discuss it is village life. We have to become more resilient and a little more independent of the wider world. I said something to my wife the other day, and she was really impressed by it. And we talked about it for 2 or 3 days. And it took me a while even to realize why she was so interested in what I had to say. I said something, I just put it out there. I don't really know what the future holds. But I know one thing for certain. You're going to grow your own food. And she really glommed onto that. Now, she's a gardener. She'd like to see other gardening. But I think the reason why that is compelling is that it admits that while the future is inherently, of course, deliberately unknown, it can't be any other thing. While the future is unknown, there is a known thing. You'll be growing your own food. That's just how this is going to be, people. There's no way around it. We have a death dome and a ring of fire coming for the U.S. Midwest, where all the corn is and all the wheat and all the everything else. And right now in Southern California, it can get so hot that they can't, that the crops wither. And there's your food supply, folks. There's your food supply. And now what? Now what? So yeah, that's the one thing I can absolutely assure you of, which is that you will be growing your own food. That is not sufficient. You growing your own food is not good enough. You need everyone in your neighborhood growing their own food. It takes a lot of people to grow food properly. And of course, the seniors, they're not really in a position to grow their own food. They could help, but they can't do the work. They can't build the beds and haul in the water and do the other things. Small children and women who have small children to raise, they can't participate much. Maybe a little. Again, they can help, but they can't set it up. They can't manage it. They can't protect it. They have life issues to deal with constantly. So who's going to do this? Well, who's in the neighborhood? Who's strong-bodied, has a clear sense of responsibility and duty, is willing to sacrifice their personal pleasures to pull for the community. Is there anyone? Who is it? Can you find them? Do you know who they are? Are they willing? That's the work of the moment, and all that just to get food. And then we have to find some land. Well, every house has land, but maybe we have to tear down our backyard fences and work the land in common. And that used to be how it was. You had a commons, and you didn't have fences between houses. You had fences around the houses. The village had a perimeter, and you had fences to keep the animals in and the children in, but also to keep the wild animals out. You didn't want wolves coming in and attacking your children or attacking your sheep. You didn't want foxes coming in at will to attack your chickens. And if the pig got out, if the pig was still inside the perimeter because there's a fence, then someone could catch the pig and put the pig back in the pig pen. So it's not that you are sufficient. You're not. This is societal change on some scale. Now, will your city allow you to tear down your fences and have your communal lots and have your communal garden and people work in the garden and share the work and go up and down on walkways between the properties and pull the weeds over here and hand out the water over there and plant the seeds? Will the city let you do that? Probably not. They probably won't. I don't know why they wouldn't. I don't know what ordinance they're going to trot out to say, oh, you can't take down your backyard fences. Oh, you can't share your garden plots. Oh, you can't work in each other's yards. I don't know what they're going to trot out to make you stop doing that, but that's what they're going to do. And so the opportunity for a societal change on that scale, which is really tiny, we're talking 50 or 100 people making this agreement among themselves, just having a conversation out on the sidewalk, right? Or having a conversation down at the schoolyard where 50 people can get together and talk and listen. That level of societal change, which you could in theory do, will the city allow you to do that? I don't know. You might have to grease the skids on that one a little bit. You might have to go to the city council and say, our neighborhood would like to do this. Do you have any objections? And then, of course, it goes around the departments and everybody with an objection, and some of those might be ideological. That sounds like communism. I object. Well, okay, it isn't communism, but, is that your only objection? I think it's communism, and this is a great country, and we're democratic and free, and we don't believe in communism. We'd like to be free to do this. Thank you very much. No communism in our city. You could be shot down by some old fart who thinks we're still fighting the Cold War, right? If that process doesn't work and you and your neighbors are thwarted, let's say you even got that far, which you wouldn't, but let's say you did, then you could be thwarted. Failing success on that level of societal change, then you're just going to have to wait for the fall of civilization. That's it. And with the fall of civilization, the old guy who didn't want communism and we're freedom-loving capitalist Americans, okay, well, that guy, he's fled. He's left the country, right? He's living in his second home in Utah. So now you're allowed to maybe do what you want to do. And is there anybody who's going to come around and say, hey, you can't do that? No. Because they're busy trying to figure out their shit. They're trying to find food. They're trying to find electricity. Maybe they already fled. Everybody who would be in a position to come around and tell you, hey, you can't do that, they've split. They left. And, so in the case of a societal civilizational collapse, yeah, you suddenly have some opportunity to do something. But have you thought about what that thing is? Have you talked to your neighbors? Or are they all fleeing the scene like rats abandoning a sinking ship? Have they all jumped in their cars and jumped on the freeway and got stuck in the freeway and died? because if that's what they're doing, then you may be the only one left behind, ready to tough it out and do some gardening, and let's try and make some change here, and let's pull together, and it's just you. So there's this weird set of puzzle pieces that just don't ever seem to fit together. You'd like to do it now, but your neighbors don't want to talk about it. Everyone has their head up their ass with regards to capitalism, consumerism, vacationing, and don't know your neighbors, don't want to know your neighbors. And then if you do get your neighbors together and you decide to do something, you go to the city, that puzzle piece doesn't come into play, and then you have to have societal collapse, and of course that throws all the puzzle pieces out the window. And now it's just you and a few people, and you're desperate, and you've seen the carnage on the freeways. There's no getting out of this town now. We're stuck here. We're just stuck here. That's it. We'll have to tough it out. All the freeways are full of burned out cars. That's it. We're stuck here unless you're going to walk. And where are you going to walk? And you're walking in the heat, and you have no food, no water. It doesn't sound good to me. So here we are. We're going to tough this out, and then that's your societal change. Now I did want to show some things. I want to get into some I wanted to get the bad news out there. This is going to be hard. In fact, this is impossible. There you go. Having said that, I want to throw some things out there and see what sticks. I want to show you this. This is a house underground. There's a whole movement of building what they call hobbit holes. And let me go back to my web page. Here we are. They're called hobbit holes, and they're cute, and they have these rounded roofs, and everything it flows into the landscape like this, okay? And the rounded door, it's a round door, it's a half door, and it's the rounded windows, and all the stone and the brick and all the everything else, because that's what it kind of takes to resist the dirt, right? You have to have a lot of stone, and this is a movement of people living essentially like a hobbit underground. Now, if you read The Lord of the Rings or The Hobbit, the other book, you'll hear the hobbit hole, as they're called, described as there's nothing cozier, there's nothing cuter, there's dry and warm and comforting, and all the comforts of life are found in a hobbit hole. And there's a movement to build these hobbit holes. And they all kind of have the same characteristic. This one's kind of this one's being phony, and the prior one was too. That was not a round door. That was two doors in a painted circle, not a round door. I would go full in and make a round door. That's what I would do. This is not a round door. This is a rectangular door in a circle made to look round. But you see the aesthetic, right? The rounded window tops, the rounded roof, and the dirt and the plants on the roof, and stone in the front. How many more of these are there? You can walk right up. You can drive a truck on top of this thing, because it wouldn't hold the weight. But you could walk on there. You could plant on there. You could do that. These are called hobbit holes, and this is what they look like on the inside. They look the same on the inside as they do the outside. There's some compromises. It is a particular aesthetic. Look what they've done with the ceiling. It's nice. They've patterned it. Here's another one with above ground structures. So this is sort of breaking the mold a little bit, but there's big stones, there's turf, there's a pathway up to the top. There could be stairs, handrails. This is an underground house. Now, this is not societal change. This is someone on their own property decided to build a house this way. Did they get permits? Did they need an engineer to sign off on this? Is there any engineer in the world that would sign off on this? This is non-standard construction. There's non-standard load bearing. You have all kinds of problems with rot and water control. Maybe there's asphalt shingles under that dirt. I don't know, but you're going to have problems with managing water. That's what the engineer is going to tell you. And then there's the weight bearing. That's a heavy roof. That dirt, those plants, and other things that might accumulate, like hail, snow, right? Snow roofs are peaked so that the snow sheds off. Snow is not going to shed off of this roof. It's going to pile up, and that's going to be a lot of weight. So what's your weight bearing on the internal load bearing structure? part of the building. That's a view of the roof. I haven't even seen these pictures before. This is the first time I've seen them. Yeah. Some of this is the same building, shown different ways. This is the skylights letting the light in. You see how deep they are? It's because it's underground. Now, why am I talking about underground? The reason that you're doing underground, and spoilers, it happens in the book. The neighbors are really worried about growing food and protecting the perimeter and having their own electricity. They've got solar panels and some other things. And then it gets hot. And then they realize, oh my God, this isn't going to work. We can't live above ground because there's not enough electricity from the solar panels to run the air conditioning. And so it gets hot and people die. And then the village realizes, oh, we're going to have to live underground. And why is that? Because of passive cooling. Oh, and by the way, passive heating as well. You live underground, the interior environment doesn't really change much in temperature. Now you have windows, they let some heat in and some cold in. You have skylights, you have doors. In the original Hobbit hole, if you go back and look at, let's go back to this page and see if any of these come tour a real life Hobbit house. Okay, let's look at this one. Oh, this is Facebook. This isn't going to work. I'm sorry, I should have planned all this ahead of time. The idea with this one is few windows. There are some skylight windows up on the roof, and I don't see any windows. There's a window in the door. You're trying to keep as little exposure to the environment as possible. This is a good one. You see this one, the tiny windows. There's little windows on either side of the door, and it's mostly dirt. It's mostly dirt and plants and stones. And the idea is you're trying to be the least exposed as possible to the environment. Same story here. There's tiny windows, a lot of dirt, a lot of coverage. You're trying to escape from the elements. You're trying to escape from the elements. I'm just looking around here to see if there's any others that are interesting. Hobbiton movie set. Okay, so this is the movie set, I guess, for it's a Hobbiton movie set. It's a movie set. This is a set for a movie. And you'll notice it's mostly dirt. I have to come back and make sure you're seeing the same thing I am. Yes. It's mostly dirt. Now this is societal change. This is a massive redesign in how we build homes. How big is this community of homes? You don't even know. There could be 8 or 10 homes in this picture alone. I see something of the upper left here. Under this big tree, the upper left, it looks like there's another home up there. I see a little window under that on the left-hand side of the screen that is showing a little tiny window. Is that another room? Is that another house? I don't even know. But you could have homes. You could have a home here. Can you see this? What I'm drawing? Yes, you can. You see that? Good. You can have a home there. You can have a home here. You can have another home over here. There's a big home. Looks like there's a big home up there. You could have one over here on the right. You could have something behind this. You can't even see it. You could have homes for 4, 5, 6 families just in the frame of this picture. But because some are behind and some are in front, you can't really see them. Are these large homes? No. These are small homes. You might have 2 bedrooms, but it's a small bedroom. You don't have a lot of windows. You have one door. Maybe you have a chimney that goes through the dirt in the ceiling. You have a chimney or a vent if you prefer. So these communities, which is what I'm kind of pointing out here. I'm pointing out that this is a community. It's a movie set, but I'm pointing out that this is a community. And this is the level of societal change that's required. Are we going to do this? No, we're not going to do this. That's too bad. We really should do this. We could do this. It's just an engineering. It's just a choice of engineering. It's just a choice of materials, if you like, that you're going to build a house and then you're going to cover it with dirt and sod and plants and you're going to garden on the top of it. It's just a choice of materials. That's all it is. Will we make that choice? No, we won't. It could be really comfortable living in this thing. You could really enjoy it. Are we going to do that? No, we're not. We're not ever going to do that. We're not ever going to do the right thing. But this is how you escape global heating. This is how you don't have to have electricity to stay cool or to stay warm in the winter. You do it passively. Oh, there's all kinds of ways to do passive homes. Okay, fine, do it. Go ahead and do it. You could have really thick walls. You could have R50 insulation in the walls. Fine, go ahead. Make your walls out of 2x8s and put in R50 insulation. Sure, you could do that. But everybody has to do that. Everybody has to engage in societal change of some kind. Now, I'll tell you what, above ground houses are not going to save you. And the reason why is because of fire. This Hobbit village, because it is under the dirt, the fire will go over this. The fire will go around this. It will burn these trees. It will burn all this down, but it'll leave all this alone. Now, this wood here in the front, this wooden door, these wooden shelves, this might be sacrificed. It might burn all the wood or all the paint off the door. But heavy timbers, if these are really heavy timbers, they'll blacken, but they won't burn through, not easily. And by the time, I'm talking technology here, okay? By the time the fire is over and you go outside, you may need to replace some of this. You may want to replace some of it. You may not need to, but you may want to. And that's a fairly small repair. The interior of a home is fine because it was underground. And only the exposed exterior is the part that burns. And, yeah, a couple of weeks with wood and you could repair the whole thing. Probably. I certainly could. With the right tools and the right materials, you could repair the whole thing. So fire could come through this community, burn everything on the surface, including all the trees, and leave the people inside reasonably comfortable, frightened, annoyed, uncertain, but they'd be alive. They wouldn't have to run away from the fire. You get my point? Running away is not really a solution. You think it is. You think you're going to get away with something. You think you're going to come back, but it doesn't have to work that way. Now, it may not work that way. So I'm looking at these homes because I'm trying to talk about societal change. Hobbiton, an unexpected journey. So this is a place. Maybe this is a place, Hobbiton. Someone reproduced Hobbiton, which is the name of the village in the Lord of the Rings where the hobbits used to live. Bag End. Bilbo Baggins' house, Hobbiton. Okay, fine. So this is Bilbo Baggins' house, a reproduction. Nothing special. Anybody can make that. Someone did. Here it is. It's a movie set, but here it is. Someone made this. Not impossible. Probably not even all that hard. Now, the fact that it's a movie set means you don't have to have permits and all this kind of stuff. Societal change on this level is easy if it's a movie set. But is your community, is your city and county, and is your state going to allow you to build like this now? No, absolutely not. Foursquare, never going to do it. Can't do it. Illegal, immoral, it's hideous. You'll never survive. You're going to. Yeah, but could you? Yes, you could. Do you see anything wrong with this as a place to live? I don't. I don't see anything wrong with this. Well, except that some of these are not underground. Some of these are cute, but they're not underground. And of course, nearly all of this is AI generated, by the way. But it doesn't matter. AI generated, but if you know anything about materials, you could see how all of these supposed pretend homes could be built. You can see this. You can see doing this. But this is classic societal change. Are we going to do this? No, we're not. Will it happen? Absolutely. It is going to happen. Will you live to see it? I don't know. It depends on who you are and where you live and what kind of people you have around you. This is a lot of cooperation. Now, if me and my community wanted to do this, where we are, the project would be Oh, and this is just shelter. This is not water, this is not food, but you can kind of see, if you could get this far, if you could alter your shelter opportunities, your habitat, this would open the door to a lot of other things. This kind of living almost implies that you're local, you're resilient, you're pulling together, you're all agreed on what the challenges are and what the best approaches are going to be to those challenges. You've all looked in your own individual heart and found a way to create a community. You just get that feel from all these pictures that someone is embedded in a different kind of community. This is just housing. This is just habitat for humans. But this is actually what you need to do. You need to do this to survive global heating. This is the kind of societal change I'm talking about. I'm not talking about zoning. I'm not talking about resilience. I'm talking about completely changing how we live. And the first thing you have to do is get underground. That's how you survive the heat waves. That's how you survive the cold. That's how you survive the fire. That's even how you survive marauding bandits. It's a lot easier to defend a house that's underground. And if you live in a community, and you can see from these pictures, some of these are communities. If you live in a community, the backs of your houses, still underground, could be connected with tunnels underground. So if you are under attack and they're battering down the door, you could go flee out the back of your house into a tunnel, close the door to the tunnel, and go to your neighbor's house underground. So I don't know what the future holds. I really don't know. But you're going to have to be really concerned about your physical security. And you have to be secure against fire, against winds, tornadoes. Every one of these places is a tornado shelter. Every one of these places is a hurricane shelter. You're going to have to secure yourself against every kind of severe weather, plus severe people. Because not everybody is going to figure this out. Not everybody is going to be living in a community. Now, this one is kind of interesting. Why did it move? Oh, here we go. This is a resilient community. These people, let's see if I can click more. No, not really. I could try to enlarge it some other way, but this may not work. Let's try something here. What are my tools? Not that tool. Let's just use the browser. Let's see. It's this one. No, it's not working. No. Oh, there it is. I can enlarge it. Good. But it scrolls around and does weird things. Okay. I enlarged it. So this is a community. They are about as resilient as they can be against severe weather. And severe weather is going to be some combination, a changing combination of heat, cold, torrential rains, possibly flooding, high winds, heat, persistent heat for weeks on end, maybe even for a month, and invaders, brigands who want to come and drag you out of your home and sell you into the slave market. These are people living underground, and that's what we have to do. Yes, you could flee the Death Dome and go visit your in-laws in Utah for a week, but actually, this is where you need to be. And what am I seeing here? I'm seeing again these rounded roofs you could basically walk over. Minimum exposure to the elements. Tiny windows, one door, no other doors. Here's a little something over here, but that's really tiny. Who knows if that's even a door? Very small windows. Okay, you're keeping the heat out. You're keeping the rain out. You're keeping the fire out. But in the case of a fire, you may have to even cover these windows, put shutters over them or something. So everybody's living very small, very isolated from the environment. And of course, it's beautiful, right? It's very green. It's very inviting. You could just imagine. I don't see any people here, but you could just imagine children running around, free, playing. Adults. I don't see any gardens here, but you can imagine instead of just a bunch of greenery, that every rooftop is covered with gardens. That there's trellises with vines growing up them. There's a vineyard over here, and other things growing over there, and you'd have stairs and walkways to get you up on top of here, and up here there might be a patio area, and it might even be covered with some sort of a sunshade up above, but it's all temporary because it's above ground, so it might burn. It might get knocked over by the wind, but you wouldn't even care. You would just go back and put it back if you felt like it, because it's sacrificial. You don't even care. It's temporary. It could be an umbrella. You could bring it down and bring it back inside if you want to. But there'd be ways to live outside and enjoy the sun, but you'd probably be working. You'd be working in the sun because when you're not home, either cooking or cleaning or raising children or taking care of the elders, you're outside in the gardens, which I don't see in this picture. But every one of these houses could have a good-sized garden on the top, and there could be other gardens in between. And the pathways could be really narrow, just very minimal pathways, cobbled or covered with wood, and narrow pathways, and more land for gardening, more land for orchards, more land for vineyards. This, what you see here, this entire scene is societal change. This is the level of societal change we need. We don't need more solar panels, although those could be in the picture too. We don't need more electric vehicles, and there's no vehicles in this picture, and there never would be. You don't see any roads, do you? You wouldn't need them. Where are you going? And who's going to take care of your garden when you're gone? That's just not a thing anymore. This is the level of societal change we're talking about. You're living underground, virtually. You're gardening all the time. If you're not gardening, you're raising and tending the children and elders, or the children are in school and someone has to teach them. Maybe take turns teaching them. Who knows? But this is the level of societal change I'm talking about. Can you do this? Absolutely not. Absolutely impossible. This is never going to happen until it happens. Until something bad happens. And all of the barriers to you doing what must be done now, the level of societal change, the detail of societal change, the depth of societal change that we must now engage in is absolutely impossible now until it's no longer impossible. And then what you need to know, what I need to know, what we all need to talk about is this. This is the example before you. Living underground. Now, what's missing from this example is copious gardens, wooded pathways, children playing and helping the adults, seniors working and dispensing wisdom and tutoring the children. Somewhere there's a school, somewhere there's a clinic. You couldn't even tell by looking at this. There's no roads, there's no cars. There's maybe some oxen or horses to move wagons, and it's all in. There's pasture for the animals. For when they're not working, they can go graze. And that's it. That's your life. And it's all underground. And somewhere there's a stable for the animals to go underground. Because at the end of the day, you have to protect them from the same things you're protecting yourself from. Fire, wind, hail, tornadoes, derechos, hurricanes, hail, everything, even flooding. Some of these houses are far enough up on a hillside that they're protected from flooding, more or less. And if you built your windows really small, and you built your doors to seal really properly, then if this area did flood, because maybe there's a river down here in the foreground that we can't see, there's a river down here and it did flood, you just hold out the water. You just hold it out. And you're mostly underground. It's not like the river's going to necessarily be able to sweep you away. You're underground. So the flood waters rise, and then the flood waters fall, and then you wait for things to dry out, and you open your door, and you go outside and you start sweeping and cleaning up. Because you're underground. This is the level of societal change we're talking about. Can you do this now? Absolutely not. Will you do this in the future? Only if you're alive, and only if you're working with people who are also willing to do the same thing. This is collective living. It's agreeing on how to survive. It's agreeing that this is what we need to do, that there's no question about it. We're all going to pull together. We're going to help each other figure this out. We're going to help each other execute on the plan, and we're going to look after each other afterwards. That's what it takes. And the idea that you're going to run off and, go live in the mountains with your AR-15 and your pit bull, that doesn't cut it. That's just not going to work. That is not societal change. We need societal change. Everybody has to be doing the same thing, not because communism, but because we're all under the same threat. The planet is trying to kill us. The planet is going to kill us. It's going to be successful at this. It's going to throw everything it has at us. You have to live underground. I'm not even offering this as one of the things we could do. We must do this. We must live underground because of global heating and everything associated with it. The massive amount of energy that's being injected into the system is going to make it impossible, virtually impossible, to live above ground. Too much energy, too much violence. All the time, every day, too much. You have to live underground, like a rabbit. And why does a rabbit live underground? Because everything outside of the den is trying to kill it. Now, you're not going to have that problem except with global heating. Everything on the planet is going to be trying to kill you. You're going to have to live underground. That's a big change. And it's a change on all levels. It's a change in mindset. It's a change in construction practices. It's a change in how we organize ourselves. It's also a change in our governance, because we have 2 generations of leadership to get rid of, to burn through, before we're going to be able to do anything to save ourselves. It's going to take 2 generations, maybe close to 100 years, before we have the right kind of leadership in the future. Not now, in the future. The right kind of leadership that can help us make decisions like this, to live underground. Before we have the right kind of leadership that can help us organize ourselves to save ourselves. It's going to take 100 years to get rid of the current crop, and to get rid of enough capitalism, and to get rid of enough financialization, and to get rid of enough societal barriers, both in people's minds and on the books as laws. It's going to take 100 years to get rid of all that before we can save ourselves, before we can live underground. Now, if you've been on this channel very often, you'll know that what I've been doing is building a basement. I'm building a basement under one of my outbuildings. The building itself isn't that important, but the space under it was. And I'm going to use that basement for storage, fair enough. And then, if push comes to shove, I already have a place I can live underground. Would I use it for that? Absolutely. I am completely prepared. I'm prepared with the hard work having been done. It's not a very big space, but if I did find myself having to live like that for whatever reason, then I could enlarge it. I could dig another one and connect them with a tunnel. And then I could do that for my neighbors, and we could all get together, and using nothing but shovels, really. There's no rocks in the soil around here. Dig and establish basements, or hobbit holes if you like, because that's what's going to have to happen because of global heating. There are going to be rich people who escape this by going to Mars, and there will be people, the rest of us, aren't going to escape this at all. We're going to have nowhere to go and no way to get there, and you're just going to have to live in place. And unfortunately, that means living underground. And that sounds fanciful, and that sounds radical, and that sounds unhinged. It's not. It's the only place you're going to survive the heat. It's the only place you're going to survive the fire, even possibly the floods. Everything that nature's going to throw at us, the safest place to be is underground. But I need my windows, and I need my whatever. No, you can't have those. Those are the enemy. The windows let in the fire. The windows let in the heat. Do you want to be out in the sun and enjoy the light? Then go outside. And that's good that you enjoy the light and the sun, because you're gonna have to work outside anyway, because you're a gardener now, and you have a whatever it is, 1/8 of an acre garden to maintain, just to feed yourself and your neighbors. And sometimes your neighbors need your help with their garden, and sometimes someone needs your help with something else. Maybe you have a skill for fixing furniture. Maybe you have a skill for birthing babies. Maybe you have a skill for herbology and herbal medicines. Maybe you have a skill as a teacher. Maybe you have a skill as a chiropractor. So there's lots of things you're going to be doing besides working your garden. And most of the things you do outside your garden in your home are helping your neighbors, because that's what we'll be doing. And that's societal change. That's what we're talking about. And I've chose these pictures based upon the idea of a picture of a hobbit hole, which is where I did my search. Picture of a hobbit hole. Just go back to the images. This is all on Google. So yeah, images of hobbit holes. Some of these are AI generated. I'm picking this and I'm focusing on this because actually I have to go back to this screen share. There we go. I'm picking this and focusing on this because this is the most radical way I can help you imagine the kind of societal change I'm talking about. Deep, complete, overturning societal change. And it extends beyond your choice of habitat, which is necessary. You have to live like this. I know you don't believe it. No one believes it. You're going to have to live like this. You're going to have to live underground. It's as simple as that. I don't know how else to explain it. I'm just saying it. You don't want to believe it? Fine, don't believe it. But that's what's going to happen. And it extends beyond just living underground to living communally. A bunch of you living in your separate places but connected underground. And then it's going to extend to growing your own food and growing food for each other and having pasture and having your animals on the pasture. And it's going to extend to making everything you need out of wood. Wooden wheels, wooden wagons, wooden chairs and tables, furniture. Growing fibers so that you can have your own textile industry based on some kind of fiber. What fiber do you want to use? Cotton, wool, hemp, all of the above? Sure, go nuts. And you're going to need some way to make that fiber into threads. And that's what we call a spinning wheel. And you have to have some way to take that thread and make it into cloth. And that's called a loom. And then you're going to need someone with the skills to take that cloth. And there's a lot of other steps to making cloth. There's fullering and a whole bunch of other things. And then you're going to have someone who can take that cloth and make it into garments. And you're still going to need leather, and you're still going to need steel and brass and iron. And you're going to need a lot to pull this off. This is deep societal change. This is where we're headed. We're not going to be living like we're living now. We're just not. It can't happen. It can't continue. The Earth dynamic system is going to pull the rug out from all of us individually and collectively. And if you don't want to die in a fire, live underground. It's as simple as that. I don't know what else to tell you. If you don't want to die in a fire, you're going to have to live underground. If you don't want to die in a flood, you're going to have to live underground. Some of these are real constructions. People do this. Are you doing it? No. I'm kind of doing it, come to think of it. I'm finishing the stairs to my basement. The basement is gorgeous. The stairs are just as cute as a bug. And I could live underground. I could take everything in the basement, throw it up on the surface, cover the basement with a layer of dirt, do something but the stairs, and I'm living underground. We don't have a choice. They're not going to let you do it. But you're going to have to do it anyway. And against the day when suddenly, like, okay, this afternoon, you got to make changes fast. On that day, remember what I've said. They're not going to save you, but they will get out of the way. That's the one thing they can do. They can't save you. They won't save you, and they won't let you save yourself. But they can get out of the way. And some of them will get out of the way by dying. Or some of them, the richer ones, will get out of the way by leaving your community and go living someplace else. At some point, you'll be in a position to save yourself. And when you do, This is what saving yourself looks like. And if this doesn't suit you, if this looks ugly and ill-kempt, well, then imagine this surrounded by gardens. And imagine this with children playing in the front. And imagine this with 2 goats and a sheep. And imagine this with neighbors on all sides. This is what we're going to have to do. Can this accommodate 8 billion people? No. But by the time people are freed up to save themselves, by whatever means they can do that, by the time that day comes, there won't be 8 billion people. 900, I remain convinced. Every time I think about it, I still think it's true. 999 out of 1,000 people are going to perish. And the 1 in 1,000 that doesn't perish is prepared for societal change. Deep, total societal change. Peter Jackson turns home into a replica of Bilbo's hobbit house. So Peter Jackson lives in a hobbit house. He has a hobbit house with a round door, like I said you would have to do. That's Peter Jackson. Wow. Well, that's enough of that, I guess. Trying to help people to see themselves living outside the box. Your house is a box. It's a tinder box. It's made out of wood. It'll burn in a second. I'm trying to get you to think about what comes next for us. It is grim. I maintain that 999 out of 1,000 people are going to die. I maintain that. I believe that's true. I believe that is absolutely correct. I don't see any way that can be avoided. But it doesn't have to all be 100% doom and gloom. Somewhere, not too far in the future, 5 years, 10 years, 15 years, some of us turn the corner. Some of us turn the corner. And we build a new society. Not because we're communists, not because we're progressives, not because we're woke, not because we're hippies, but because we must. We must. And those that don't perish. Some of those that do perish anyway, but we must make deep, abiding societal changes. And the most shocking one I can come up with is living underground. Everything comes from that, including gardening on your roof for your own food supply. Living with your neighbors, constructing your homes together, raising each other's children, having a clinic, having a school, having a place to store preserved foods. You're all figuring this out together. This is deep and abiding and complete societal change, completely altered. Nothing brought forward, nothing from the past brought forward, nothing. Absolute, complete societal change. You can't do it. They won't let you. You're going to have to do it. And 1 in 1,000 of us will pull that off. And 1 in 1,000 is optimistic. That's probably the best base case scenario. After that, it just goes downhill. 1 in 1,000 is the best case scenario of who is able to pull this off. This is what we have to do. No question in my mind. Everything else is going to fail. This is what we have to do. Complete societal change on a scale nobody alive today can comprehend. I'm trying, but I don't think I've wrapped my head around it. Nobody can. So that's what I wanted to say about that. This is a bookend to my other video about how to escape a heat dome. Yeah, we have a lot of things to escape. the next week's Heat Dome is just early days. A preview of coming attractions. So it's a long story. Currently up to 254 pages. It's a long story of how we do that. And there's a lot of suffering along the way. I think we can do it. Some of us can do it. Don't know who in advance, but some of us can do it. And when the opportunity comes your way, do it. This is the work of the moment. Do it. Running away from climate change by not going anywhere. Digging in. Literally digging in. Talk at you later.